and yoga is so good for you, but it's not always safe. So these are some really great, I chose the top 3 that I love to do. So we have the tree pose or the Vrksasana. It strengthens your legs, your hips, it improves your core, your balance, and your posture. These are all the elements you want in an exercise program. So if you start to think, oh my gosh, she just told me all these things I need to do, here you go in one pose. So you can get all of them together in one pose. So this is, you can start, I have my foot kind of up my leg a little bit, but I have a lot of my people start by their toes on the ground. So you have that little tiny bit of support with having your toes on the ground beside you. The chair that I have there, I have it in that position because of what I was doing, but you can flip that chair around. You can put a wall behind you and a chair beside you to give you perfect amount of things to grab a hold of. And if you start to stumble, you'll just hit the wall and not the floor. So you can, you just root down in all 4 corners of your foot and start by placing your toes on the ground, and then you can slowly move your leg up into your inner thigh. That's really tough to do, so it takes a lot of years of practice and a lot of flexibility, but what I'm doing here in this pose is perfectly appropriate. The only thing you should not be doing is make sure that heel of mine, you can't tell because of the pants I'm wearing, is right below my knee. You don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on your knee because you could be setting yourself up for some knee pain and knee problems. So just keep that foot below the knee or your toes on the ground and work your way up. But this is really a great exercise for all of those elements. The chair pose. So it strengthens your lower extremities, your hip, and your spine. And actually these are pictures taken out of our osteoporosis online program. So I was just screenshotting the pictures of some of the yoga stuff that we do. So your feet are parallel, your hips width apart, your hips are back, but you see my spine is nice and straight here. So there's no bend in my back, which is where you get into those fracture risk. You lift your toes to root your heels. So what I mean by that is you don't want your knees to go beyond your toes. Your toes should be nice and wiggly. So even if you're doing a squat, make sure the majority of your weight is in your heels and not your toes, because when the weight is in your toes, you're going to end up with a lot of significant knee. It's too much pressure on your knees. So if you feel uncomfortable with this pose, put that chair behind you and as if you're going to sit in a chair, just don't actually sit in the chair. That way, until you get used to having that rooting your heels into the ground, if you happen to stumble backwards, you're going to be caught by a chair, so you don't have that fall. So always pull in that abdomen, pull that belly button into the spine. But when you do that, make sure you're still breathing. A lot of my people, they pull that belly button in and all they're doing is using their diaphragm to hold their breath. So make sure you're still able to do that really nice and deep breathing, but you're really bracing your stomach as if you have a girdle wrapped around you. And really hold it as long as you can. Hold it until your legs start to get shaky. I always tell my people, hold it until your legs start to shake and then give me 2 more seconds. Because those 2 more seconds are going to do the most good out of that whole time. So you don't want to overstress your body, but you do want to bring yourself right to that borderline of pushing your body beyond your limits. Great pose. And I have to say, I love doing it on the chair because this is not an easy pose to do. But again, the half moon pose, and if you are familiar with yoga, you are familiar with this pose. It helps with your balance, your lumbar strength, loading the thoracic and cervical vertebrae, your hips, bones, wrist, femurs, everything. This is the pose. So if you are going to be doing this at home, do me a favor and just make sure you have a wall behind you. That way, because this is a really tough pose. You want to make sure that if you start to stumble that you have that support of the wall. Turn your foot parallel to the wall, bend your right knee slightly, and then place your hand on the seat. So I always have that little tiny bend in that stabilizing knee because you never want to lock that knee out. You always want to have that little tiny give. If I'm saying on a 1 to 100%, it's like a 10% bend. It's very slight, but it does help with your balance. So shift your weight onto your right foot and lift off the ground, place your hand on your hip. There is absolutely no need to have your hand out to the side. You can put your hand on your hip and then control your breathing. And that's where the fun comes in, is trying to hold everything in, do everything, but then have that breath moving fluidly in and out. But these 3 poses are great. Again, they have all the elements of the exercise you want for osteoporosis, plus the stress reduction portion of lowering your cortisol, deepening your breath, body awareness, which is huge when you have osteoporosis, realizing where your body's at in space, realizing, being in the present moment, because when we're in the present moment, we see that rug that's lifted on the corner. We see the dog toys that are in the corner that you might step on. So when you're in the present moment and you're living in that present moment, you're able to be more aware of your surroundings, more aware of your own body and how you're feeling.